Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Common Council public hearing on the budget. And with that, could I have a roll call, please?
Finkler?
Here.
Hammer?
Here.
Gray?
Present.
Motive?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
Rolke?
Present.
Steiner?
Here.
All present.
Okay, and we will now have the public hearing on the proposed 2024 budget for the City of Columbus. You're up there.
All right. Since we last met, we did make one modification to the budget. That's all. So your first page in the budget notes has the total amount that was adjusted for payroll, and it lists the page numbers that were affected. So is there any questions on that piece of it? Okay, does anyone have any other specific questions that to date have not been answered so far? Okay, and one other note, I have not made, well, we did not make any changes to the garbage recycling fund, Fund 230. And we will speak later about the rate that we've come up with. And when I got done with all that, I looked back at the budget and we're very close to what I would have predicted using those numbers we used to calculate the rate. So I left the budget alone. And we came within a count of maybe 19 residences, and we've already found 4. So we're really close to the budget that we already had in there, okay? I did speak with a couple people, and people always question what's on my tax bill. So if you'd like a few minutes, I'd like to if I can take a few minutes, I'd like to show you where our numbers that we're coming up with for our budget, how they end up on the tax bill. I kind of wrote up a little step by step, okay? Oh, shoot, I don't have it. I can get it to him, of course. I did not know I needed to do that. Everybody wrong. Does anyone else want one of the questions? No. All right, so I've given you 3 sheets. One is some calculations, and the second is our tax incremental worksheet. That will be filed here in another couple of weeks. And the third one is an example tax bill. This is all using 2022 taxes, which everybody paid this year. And that was more accurate than using this year's data because we don't have 2 pieces of information. One is the county levy, and we don't have our school tax credit number. So those are in here, and I'll show you how it works. So I want to start with our cover sheet. And I want to show you these numbers are coming from the tax incremental worksheet. Okay, so you might want to have them both out for just a minute. Okay, the very top section is basically a mimic of the tax incremental worksheet. I've put those all into the spreadsheet. So your first thing you're coming up, you have the data that you need is each taxing jurisdiction's levy. So those are the first numbers. And then once we have the equalized value, we're using the equalized values without the TIDs included. that comes up with basically like a tax rate. And then what we're doing is taking the new the equalized value with the TIDs, okay? And then so you're grossing it up for the TIDs. So that is what your column E is all about. That's your grossed up numbers for the taxes and then for the levy. And then column F is just showing you the difference that's just the tax incremental districts. Okay, so that's your first section on this, that's your top section here. All right, so then I've taken, again, I've repeated the tax levy. I'm on the second set, the middle section now. And then you divide that into your assessed value. And you're coming up with, or divided by your assessed value. And that's where you get your city or your taxing district's mill rate. That's just your basic mill rate, okay? After that, you don't really call it a mill rate. It's more like a taxing rate. So I did, down below I said mill rate, but we'll get there. So that's your mill rate. Now to get to a taxing rate that is used to actually calculate your taxes due, you're going to take your total levy. Okay, and that's, if you see up above, that's the total levy, including the TIDs. And then you're going to divide it by your assessed value again and come up with your tax rate. Okay, so now if you look on the lower piece, you have your tax rate, which it says mill rate there, but really it's if you look at your tax bill, it's called the net assessed value rate. So now I'd like you to have your tax bill and your worksheet that I gave you and put those next to each other. Okay, so then in the middle section of your tax bill, so I'm looking at this section here where you have the taxing jurisdictions, okay? So if you look at 2022 tax, you're taking that net assessed value, and I have them broken down by the taxing jurisdiction. You're multiplying that by the assessed value of your property on your tax bill, and you come up with your tax. So I'll just give you a minute to comprehend that and see if you have any questions where I can explain anything more. I just thought this is a little helpful if people are asking you, you know, some people really do think that it's all the city's tax on your tax bill. So this helps you understand a little bit more of where they're coming, where these taxing jurisdiction numbers, how they come into play and end up on your tax bill. Okay. Is there any other questions on the budget? Okay, thank you.
And Henry, you wanted to speak on the budget?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Henry Elling, 650 South Charles Street here in Columbus, also the Secretary to the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm here tonight to speak specifically to the budget section regarding the Historic Preservation Commission. You can find it on page 4 of your document. It's one of the first items in the expenditures portion of the budget. I'd like to thank the council and the staff for their work. Certainly the staff, after all of the various meetings they've gone through and revisions that they've made. The Historic Preservation Commission budget for next year is shown as we had requested it. So thank you very much for that. I just wanted to detail out some of the items that are in there so that you have an understanding going forward of what our plan is for next year. The first thing I would say is overall our expectation is that we are going to work on education and design guidelines to start the year. And by the end of the calendar year, we hope to have at least one area where a plan has been reviewed and the documentation is available to have potential local designation. In order to accomplish that, we'll have to have public hearings, we'll have to have notices to property owners, we'll have to have many mailings to keep those property owners informed as to what's going on. So the first line, line 311, is postage. We've included $3,000 there for notices on various levels for various meetings of the commission. Line 312, supplies, we've left the same at $500. Line 313, we have as $500. This is for printing and publishing of hearing notices and information on our meetings and public hearings. Line 315 is a maintenance line, and that's a little bit different than ordinary because that's money that we expect to be set aside on an annual basis for a fund that will continue maintenance of the water tower up near the cemetery. We have an expectation from you that we will monitor that money and we will have the monies available as future maintenance is required on that historic structure. So we will be coming to you, as I said a few weeks ago, to designate the money from 2022. You'll note that during 2023, there's an expectation that that money will not be spent, and then we will be coming to you for that designation as well. The next line, 317, is for meetings, and this is for the Historic Preservation Commissioners to attend various meetings. This year, our chairperson, Ruth Hermanson, was elected to the board of the State Historic Society, so she will be attending those, and we will also have several members going to state conferences and other webinars. So that's where we will be spending the money from that line. And then the final line is new projects, and this is the same as this year. It will be $3,000, and we're going to be using that as a complement to money that we are requesting from the State Historic Preservation Office for the initial studies for the potential for designation of a historic district. So thank you very much. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Was there anybody else that wanted to speak on the budget that didn't get a chance to sign up? Okay. Hearing none, then I am closing the public hearing, and then I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Alder Finkler will move to adjourn.
Alder Motive will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motive to adjourn. Is there any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned from the public hearing. Just going to give her just a minute to. I'm not sure, otherwise she can have mine here, so. Okay, and welcome back, and we will now go into our Columbus Common Council regular meeting. And could we have a roll call, please?
Hammer,
Here.
Gray,
Present.
Motive,
Present.
Reed. Here. Rolke.
Present.
Steiner,
Here.
Finkler,
Here.
all present.
Okay, and if you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we have had a notice of open meeting, and I would look for a motion, or to entertain a motion for approving the agenda for this evening.
Alder Motive will, Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the agenda with one amendment, and that is that we are pulling number 3 out of the consent agenda, and we'll be talking about that separately.
Alder Rolte will second.
Okay, have a motion by Alder Motif and a second from Alder Roki to approve the agenda with the mentioned change in the consent agenda. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence and communications. We have Nicole Louie. So if you could up to the podium and then state your name and your address, and I think he's going to catch the microphone for you. You're on.
Nicole Louie, 121 North Water Street, and I'm here to say that I passed my contingency occupation today on the thing that just got passed off till next week or so. All right?
For the wine walk.
For the wine walk, correct. All right?
Right. Thanks. And then next we have Katie Nichols.
I was also here to comment about the wine walk picnic licenses. So just so I understand correctly, is this being pushed to the committee of the whole agenda at this point? Or what does it mean that it's off the
No,
consent agenda?
we're going to address that particular item on its own.
Got you. Okay. So my location for the wine walk at 110 South Leadington, we do not currently have occupancy, but I do feel confident that we will have occupancy by the time the wine walk comes around. So I just wanted to be here to state that. I have my plumber coming in this week. Wright Plumbing is my plumber, well respected and known around town. And I have my electrician coming in next week, Total Electric. So I feel confident that we'll be able to occupy the first floor and be a safe and legal place for a stop. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, and next we will move on to the consent agenda for items 1, 2, and 4, and we will address number 3 separately. So I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda with items 1, 2, and 4.
Alder Gray moves to approve the consent agenda as mentioned.
Reed will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Reed to approve the consent agendas, item 1, 2, and 4, with 3 being addressed separately. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So now we will move on to item number 3, which is to approve picnic licenses for 2023 Wine Walk. So Attorney John.
Normally, this is a 30-second conversation as part of the consent agenda. I requested that it be considered separately tonight for the very reason that the 2 speakers at public comment indicated. There are 2 properties on the wine walk that didn't have occupancy permits yet. The way that all of the applications are filled out for the temporary licenses is to basically allow the entire building to be used as the premises, which allows people to walk through, which is the whole point. But the two facilities that didn't have occupancy permits granted to them yet raise a little bit of a question for safety concerns, and because there is still at least one more council meeting before the wine walk occurs, we asked that be pulled off so that you could either approve the ones that are fine and hold these 2 back, or approve them all, but it's deserves a little bit of attention anyway.
Alder Gray.
I think I would be comfortable approving all of them and just making 110 South Leadington contingent upon occupancy license prior to the event. So like, as long as the occupancy license comes through and she can prove it, then it's fine. I don't see the need to bring this back to another meeting, as long as it comes through, it comes through.
Alder Reed?
Thank you. I'm also comfortable approving all and then giving a conditional approval for the 110 Ludington. I was going to say Ludington, but there's several. So yes. I really don't have a problem. I had one question. So the two that we were asking about, are they not going to have wine? It's kind of odd how they list it.
You would have wine at those two places, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's listed, but yes, both of them are meant to be wine shops.
Okay. Oh, I'm comfortable with that. It was just written in an odd way. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, well, then I would look for a motion to approve the picnic licenses for 2023 Wine Walk, including the two, 159 East James Street and 110 South Ludington Street, 110s with the contingency that they have all of their approval from the building inspector, so.
Alder Gray moves to approve all of the participants for the 2023 Wine Walk on November 25th, with the contingency that Wellspring at 110 South Ludington Street provides proof of the occupancy permit prior to the event.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay, a motion from Alder Gray and a second from Alder Finkler to approve the picnic licenses as stated by Alder Gray. Any further discussion on this item? Alder Reed?
So I'm very comfortable. Just had one question. I'm noticing both the Old Garage Barbershop and Secret Garden Floral being listed at 158 South Ludington. But I'm comfortable we will know the addresses.
I think that's a typo because
Yeah.
East James.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And next, we will move on to the Resolution 1323, which is a resolution for the 2024 budget adoption and approval of tax levy for the city of Columbus and the tax incremental districts.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve Resolution 1323.
Alder Wilkie will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Roki to approve Resolution 1323. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Gray,
Aye.
Motif,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 2 is to consider and take action on the 2024 utility budget. This would be ratifying the utilities budget as presented. Michelle of Columbus Utility is here also for questions. So, Alder Finkler? Yeah, go ahead.
Alder Finkler will move to approve the final 2024 utility budget.
Alder Motif will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motif to approve the 2024 utility budget. Any further discussion? Any questions for Michelle while she's here? Do you have a question, Alder Finkler?
Oh,
Okay. Okay, hearing none. Then I will entertain a roll call for this, please.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler,
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then on to item number 3, which is to consider and take action on the 2024 cemetery mowing bid. That was presented last week. It would be the Lakeside Lawn Care from Fall River with a bid of $56,160.
Alder Gray moves to approve the contract to Lakeside Lawn Care, Fall River, for the total amount of $56,160 for the one-year contract for mowing the Hillside Cemetery for 2024.
Alder Motive will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Motive to approve the lawn mowing bid for Hillside Cemetery. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, could I have a roll call for that, please?
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler,
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and then on to approving the claims in the amount of $377,619.81.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the claims in the amount of $377,619.81.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Motive and a second by Alder Finkler to approve the claims. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler,
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Report of the city officers. City Administrator Wilson, do you have anything to add?
Just briefly, everybody knows that we received money from the state through a grant for Tower Drive. I finally got that RFP out to the 110 10 pages of engineering groups that the WISDOT recommended we try again. So hopefully by December 7th, we'll have more than one RFP to look at, and the team can look at it and start to move forward. Otherwise, just a lot more activity on the planning and zoning side, trying to wrap up some of the applications that have been sitting there maybe since Brandon left, and then we've had some new inquiries coming in. So development review team will be busy on Friday. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. There will be a public information meeting for the 2024 street projects. It will be November 30th at the Columbus Community Center from 6:30 till 8 o'clock p.m. Anything further? Nope, good. Holiday Train will be here in Columbus on Monday, December 4th at approximately 9 o'clock p.m. So keep tuned in to the city website for more information on that. I had the pleasure of attending the Public Power Legislative Rally along with Columbus Utilities Interim Director Michelle Kaltenberg. There were many public power utilities that were meeting with our state senators and representatives to promote the importance of public power in our state and nation. Very good reception from all those that we have met with. And with the winter season getting closer, please go to the city website to review the snow policies so that you don't end up with a ticket on your car. And then we are also looking for citizen involvement as we look to a stormwater utility to alleviate our stormwater issues in this community. So I repeat, we are looking for some citizen involvement in this process. And that's all I have. Thank you. And with that, I would look for a motion to convene to closed session pursuant to 1985 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data for any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically police department non-union staff.
Alder Gray moves to convene to closed session pursuant to 19.851C.
Alder Steiner will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Steiner to go to closed session pursuant to 19.851C. Could we have a roll call on that, please?
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we will be in closed session. We will reconvene and then take action, and then we'll be going into closed session again. Briefly, briefly. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the police department non-union wages as presented.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the police department non-union wages as presented.
Alder Gray seconds.
I'll give it to Roki. Have a motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Roki to approve the police department non-union wages. Could we have a roll call on this, please?
Finkler,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda is to convene to close session per 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting the public businesses, or conducting other public businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss potential sale of 1400 Park Avenue in the city of Columbus.
Alder Motif will make a motion to move to closed session per 19851E.
Alder Gray seconds.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Gray to convene the closed session per 19851E. Any further discussion on this before we get in there? Roll call, please.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Now, yep, do we have action to take on the, what was?
Yeah, they're talking, so we'll give them a minute.
Okay, we are back in open session. And Alder Motif,
Alder Motive?
Finkler, sorry.
Yeah, Alder Finkler will make a motion to move forward with the sale of the or 1400 Park Avenue for the $570,000, keeping all previous contingencies from the most recent offer from the prospective buyers.
Reed will second.
Okay, we have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Reed to, for the motion that was as stated. And we will have a roll call.
Gray,
Nay.
Motive,
Nay.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
No.
Finkler,
Aye.
Hammer,
Okay, we are at a tie, and I will be breaking the tie. And I'm breaking this tie based on information that I researched on, and then also from word from constituents throughout the city. And no, not everybody is going to like it, but I am going to be voting no.
Alder Gray moves that we bring the property on 1400 Park Avenue along with the property on Tower Drive and James Street back to discussion at the next COW.
Alder Motive will second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Motif to bring the 1400 Park Avenue and the Tower Drive property, those were the two, and James Street, back to the next COW, which would be, what, is that November 17th?
21st.
Or 21st, yes. So any further discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Well, all in favor first.
Aye.
Aye.
Amy, where were you at?
I said aye.
Okay. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it will be brought back to the COW at the November 17th, or 21st meeting. That's 17th in the brain for some reason. Okay, now I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Alder Motive will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motif to adjourn. Any further discussion before we adjourn? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. I would like a roll call, please.
Finkler,
Here.
Hammer,
Here.
Gray,
Present?
Motive,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Rolke,
Present.
Steiner,
Here.
all present.
Okay, thank you. And I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the Committee of the Whole.
Alder Gray moves to approve the agenda.
Alder Motive will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Motive to approve the tonight's agenda for the Committee of the Whole. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody. Citizens' comment. Libby, I saw that you had went up. You were looking. Well, if you care to speak.
Katie Nichols, 649 West School Street. I just wanted to say we're here as HLPC members to answer any questions, if you have questions. We're not totally sure where we are in the process with the ordinance, but if you have questions, we're here. And I just wanted to make sure it's clear that the draft that was in the council packet tonight would result in us losing our CLG status as a city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then next you have the committee and commission minutes, beautification of September 26th, Hillside Cemetery of October 9th, Library of August 15th and September 19th, Lifestar, the August and September of 2023, and Recreation of September 11th, and Tourism of July 10th and September 11th, and then the Utility Commission from September 21st. And were there any questions on any of that information? Okay, then we will move on. Then next on the agenda is to discuss the preliminary resolutions for the special assessments concerning the 2024 street project, and we have Jason Letha here for that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me tonight. So the item on the agenda before you is the consideration of preliminary resolution for special assessment. This is for the 2024 street project that was approved earlier on. I think it was late summer, early fall. We've been working on the engineering plans for that. And as we've kind of progressed into developing those, we are at the stage where we would typically request this preliminary resolution for special assessment if you're so inclined to special assess, which I believe was the intent of the council for this project. So my neighbor here, Paul, was so kind to help me pull together some resolutions for you tonight. There's actually two of them, and I'll explain the rationale behind that. So historically, the city has always had a special assessment policy that we've followed for the typical reconstruction projects. We would be following the same type of assessment policy for this project. The difference is that we have two types of reconstructions that we've combined with next year. One is there's two streets in the residential section, which are just your typical lots with services, and then there is one street in the commercial district, which is a little different. So we're not putting sidewalk or redoing services and those type of things for that project. It's more of a road reconstruction with stormwater improvements. So because of the nature of those two, Paul and I felt it was probably important to break them into two resolutions and have two separate reports, because we didn't feel it made sense for the businesses to come listen to all the residential and be part of that assessment, which is going to be different and applied differently than I think that we're going to propose to do the commercial. So what you have before you tonight are the two different resolutions. Again, the residential section would include Selden Street between Lewis and Charles, and Richmond Street between Lewis and Charles Street. And that would be assessed typically the way we would do the residential properties. And I believe there's Looks to be about 11 properties total between those two for that resolution. And then the second resolution, which was the commercial drive between Dick Street and Maple, would be assessed to those commercial properties. And, there's probably 2, 4, 5, 6, 10 properties there. So we just kind of split them out. So if you guys choose to move this forward to council for action and adoption of these resolutions, then what we would do is we'd start working on preparing the preliminary report, which authorizes me to do that, and then ultimately we would hold the public hearing and present that report to the city for consideration and approval at such time. So I would like to do this in conjunction with the development of the plans. Joe had mentioned that we have a public informational meeting coming up here at the end of November. One of the topics that will be on that will be, am I getting assessed? That's always on my agenda, so we will cover that. So if this does move forward and we do have favorable action for this, we should have some information available at that time for the public. So once we have that public informational meeting, that will kind of allow me to move into final stage of plan development where I can finalize the preliminary resolution. I would hope then to have this back in your hands probably sometime in December with a draft report. So that's the background, kind of the timeline. Any questions on the resolutions?
Ian?
Just one question. Breaking it into two, does that increase the cost by much for two separate resolutions and in separate hearings?
Cost is in terms of what you're assessing?
Or no, cost of just.
To preparing it?
Of preparing and public sessions, everything.
Does not for me. It probably actually simplifies it a little bit.
Okay.
So the time spent with the extra document, I would envision, and Paul and I talked about having the public hearing for both back to back on the same evening.
Okay.
Although we wouldn't do it at the same time because they would be different reports, so.
Okay. That makes sense. Then I'm all good.
Everybody good moving this forward? All right, very good. Thanks, Jason. And next on the agenda is the, discuss the copier lease for the police department. And Chief Weiner is here to guide us through that.
Good evening. Very short and sweet. We are looking to replace our copy machine. It's going on 6 years old. We had paid it off earlier this year, so we only had the monthly maintenance fee and not the lease fee for most of this year, which allowed us to accumulate what we can put for a down payment on a new machine. The current machine prints 32 pages a minute, and the one we're quoted is 50. And there's also some different features with it as well, as technology, as you know, changes a lot in 6 years. We also scan a lot more documents into our records management system for digital copies, and it scans faster as well. So we're just looking to replace it. I have quotes from two vendors, Wisconsin Business and Copy Equipment, and also Rhyme Business Supply from Portage. Wisconsin Copies out of Madison. Neck and neck pricing, but Wisconsin Copy and Business clearly has the advantage. Monthly, there's like a $2.05 difference on the term of a lease between the two. But the difference is that Rhyme is for 39 months and Wisconsin Copy and Business is for 36. So when you take 3 months times the roughly $205, $208 per month, Wisconsin Copy and Business Equipment is about $600 cheaper, and it also allows us over twice the amount of pages per month to print or copy. So we're just looking to replace it. The money has been budgeted. We budget every year for a copy machine. For the lease fee, it's two separate line items, a lease fee and then the monthly maintenance. The money has been budgeted, and we're going to the cost for this is going to be less than what we budgeted because the price goes down because it's a newer device. So I'm just looking for permission to enter into a 36-month contract with Wisconsin Copy and Business Equipment, and then also on the tail end of this, looking for permission to avoid another agenda item to dispose of the old copy machine through an online auction. I have followed the city policy, and I offered it to all city departments, and there were no takers on it. Wisconsin Copy and Business offered to take it from us for $100. They'd give us $100 credit, but I think in an auction setting, and it still works totally fine, it's just 6 years old, I think we will benefit much more with an online auction. For some small business or somebody for a couple $100 can have a pretty decent copy machine, scanner, all of that stuff. It staples, it does different size papers. It's a intermediate level copy machine. So we're just asking to replace it again. The monies have been budgeted. We have the money saved from this year from the lack of payment to put a down payment of $2,500, and then the lease would be for 36 months through Wisconsin Copy and Business Equipment, who we have had for many, many years, and we have had great service and great response from them.
Any discussion on this? Move forward? Very
All right.
good.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Dennis. Okay, next is the 2024 Dodge County Humane Society contract. You have the information Pat Gable gave me for what the 2023 numbers were for stray dogs, and it was 2 for 2023. So contract-wise, last year, it was the lump sum of $1,500 for up to 5, and then on the backside, then it would be that top Humane Society must have approval before accepting any animal, and then so that was what was last year. So it looks like the price and all that is the same, so.
The 1,500 lump sum.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely want to stay the same with the 1,500, and then also marking the check for, or the top check mark that the Humane Society must have prior approval. We just want to make sure that people aren't bringing in large litters that could wind up costing $4,000 per litter for random drop-offs. So just need to make sure, yeah.
Okay, any further? And Alder Steiner?
I just had a question. How were we close to going over? Are we right around 5 animals? I didn't think we were, but
It was 2 for this past year.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look from 2018, it's 3, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then 2. So yeah, never been at that.
I figured as much.
Yep. Good moving this forward?
Yeah.
All right. The next is the updated fees for the solid waste contract. Oh, there she is. If you hit the,
Yet.
okay, he's got you.
All right, probably overload, but I just felt like the fund hasn't been discussed. Some of you might be new from when they started implementing the rate that's on the tax bill for garbage and recycling for residences. You have a sheet that I provided to Lisa that she forwarded to you. I did go back and highlight mine in yellow. It's easier to follow what I'm going to discuss if you'd like a yellow highlighted one.
Ours is.
You got the yellow?
Yeah,
Oh,
ours-
awesome. That's right. I think she got it to scan in right. Okay, good. All right. Okay, I'm just going to work on this top down because it ends up being the rates are down on the very bottom. But the fund itself, Fund 230, the what I'm looking at, the goal is to have this fund net to zero or as close to zero every year. And if you go back, I didn't put this on your sheet, but if you go back, I went back just a few years, back to 2017, the tax bill charge was 161 for 2 years, and then it went to 168, then it went to 184 for 2 years, and it's been on the bill for the last 2 years at 194. And ultimately, we're looking at going to 199, which is a $5 increase. So the one big thing that I noticed starting the budget season was that our solid waste bill that we pay to Columbia County has a certain count. And so I asked Ally to start doing a little bit of research and pull down our tax assessments, and they did not match. So we're not assessing everyone for their receptacles. So that's been the first thing we did. So we're putting things into place so that when a location gets an address, we can make note of that, put it in our little database. Then as they get receptacles, then they can be charged for it. So we're setting structure in place so that that doesn't happen in the future, okay? And so in our research, we found several missing ones, like I said, and so far to date, we've found around 100 that were missing from us being able to bill for them. So luckily, the rate over the last few years, they've put a rate in. I think they were looking at the fund in total, trying to make sure that everyone, that we're covering the fund. So I thought, okay, yeah, if we go back in and we're charging all these extra, then we can lower the rate. And I'm thinking, wow, what would it be to lower rate? Well, that didn't happen. So I looked at the fund overall, and the charges that the rate that LRS was charging is a little different than what we're being charged now. So if you look in the second little table down, we're now looking at $321 for recycling and $1174 for garbage. And it was $1058 and $407. Those numbers are actually in the very last table at the bottom. I didn't think to put them up above. But one of the big differences is that we're going to buy the receptacles now, and we have to compensate for that. So it seemed the most reasonable to use a 5-year, because that's what our contract is a 5-year contract. So I did the calculations you can see in the next table is an amortization. In governmental accounting, we don't amortize, we don't depreciate. Those are for enterprise funds. But you can, every year you'll see a negative fund balance, but the revenues that come in will bring that back up in 5 years. So we'll have brought it back up to a zero fund balance in the 5-year period. So that's how the amortization works. So the cart replacement, we were given an optional, well, they kind of rolled it in there that they'll be able to give us so many carts per month without charges. And I went back and we were kind of looking at replacements, and it doesn't happen as much as you think. And when they do happen, we're going to have the free ones. So at this point, since we don't know if there's going to be a lot of changeover, I was apprehensive on putting any more cost to the customers right now. So I left it out. I left that part out. We'll see how the trends go. We'll be looking at this every year, okay? So I zeroed that out. The next section is called the total annual cost recovery. So the first column is your base, that's basically your base charge. When I get this list done, I need to give that to LRS, and they are going to bill us for the number of carts we have out there, not what Columbia County had on their books. So that is basically a calculation of how many residents how many that we're coming up with that we're going to have the 2011. I've used the new rate and came up with $360,773 is going to be basically I'm calling it a base cost. That's the LRS or the new LRS contract. So that's how much we're going to be paying out for the contract. And then I have your cart purchase for the 5 years. And that gives, then I made it a subtotal because I wanted to separate it from the next two columns. So if you look at the fund, we have other costs in the fund, and we have specific revenues where we have some fees that we're charging for things, the recycling program that we have with the dumpsters, things like that. So I've accounted for those, and also currently there was a slip in the fund balance, and right now there's about a $5,000-$6,000 negative fund balance from last year. You kind of need to roll that forward every year. So I didn't put it all in this year. I kind of broke it out in a few years. So that's built into the fund costs and then the miscellaneous fund revenues that we have for the total cost of the fund. So the total, I call it total recovery. So the total cost of the fund is then, if you look in the next section, total annual customer charge. So that last column is duplicated in the first column. And then I divide that by the number of customers, and I came up with a calculated rate. I then adjusted it to the dollar so that we wouldn't have a little cent out there. And it's just typical sometimes to do that with fees, so I rounded it. So when you round it up, the rate that potentially would go on the tax bill for next year would be $5 more than last year. And it's compensating for all the changes that we've made this year. Okay, and I did put a little percent out there. Sometimes that's a little helpful. Well, what percent increase are we looking at? It's right there, 2.56% increase from last year's rate. And then, like I said, I did a 5-year estimate, but we will roll this every year and look at it. And then the bottom section, when you look at the LRS contract, it's a monthly. They show the monthly rate. So I wanted to just break it back down into a monthly rate so you could see that too. So I've just taken it back down to the monthly. And there's your garbage and your recycling base cost again. That's the charges, the two charges. So that comparing to the monthly rate, which is your billing rate, the $199 that we're proposing, and breaking that down by 12 months. So you're comparing, there's a base cost built into the 1617, which is a monthly cost, and I just wanted to see the difference in the base that we're paying out and the rest of the fund's cost down to a monthly charge to a customer. So I thought that might be good for you to have too. So if you can see, there's about a 10, it's about 10% for next year, a little over 10% for next year. Yeah. Any questions on the data?
Honestly, I'm pretty amazed it only went up by as much as it did considering the...
We found carts.
Yeah, that's got to be the key. Like, I don't think we have fully funded our garbage and recycling for quite some time, if I remember correctly. We were operating at a deficit every year.
It leveled out. Once I got done with the audit, there was quite a bit of work in that closing out of the year for me to do journal entries to getting things to where they should be. It was up around, it was up higher, but it was down to negative 5,000 by the end of 2022.
Yeah, that was something I remember us working on before, was increasing the monthly service, the service fees in order to reduce the amount of deficit.
Right.
Because we weren't charging enough for a long time.
Right.
So the fact that you are recouping the deficit, the little bit of deficit we still had left over back then, and adding more service, and we're adding more service with LRS than we had before.
And we had to pay for the carts.
And the carts, like, it only going up by a tiny bit like this is, I mean, the numbers don't make sense that how it only went up by that much, but that's a good thing. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the time I got all the data put together.
Anybody else have any further questions? Good moving this forward then? All right. Thank you, Crystal. What?
I do want to bring up a quick question we might need to discuss with our attorney. When you put a charge like this on a tax bill, does it require a resolution versus just approving a fee? Because it is getting placed on the tax bill, and I couldn't find the resolution for it.
I don't know the answer to that, but it would be a good idea.
So I thought when we bring it back to council, it should be in resolution, since it is going on the tax bill. And that would, if we did that in 2 weeks, it would be in time for me to roll it into the taxes.
It also has a little bit more permanence.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next is discuss Public Works Superintendent and Lisa Wilson, if you would.
Yeah, so I kind of maybe put the cart in front of the horse a little bit on this one. So the utility director does need to go back to the utility commission for them to have that discussion. I did talk to Michelle. She will have it on their next agenda so that we can bring it back to you guys. The intention, though, I think, is just so everybody's aware, is to kind of split the utilities out from Public Works. I did talk to Nick before he left, and I guess my impression is this is a really, really big job once you put Public Works in, and there's concerns as to whether or not that individual can give enough time to not only all the utilities, but to Public Works. So what we'd like to do is finalize that Public Works Superintendent job description that I believe Chris kind of started, and get that posted and out so that we can have some leadership to start to work with the guys that are down at the shop. So just some feedback, and if everybody's comfortable, to be able to move that along.
Anybody have any questions?
So we're just looking for a Public Works like director, not a utilities director. Are we killing the utilities director thing all completely, or just looking for someone to run the DPW crew?
Run the DPW crew. Work with them to figure out kind of some of the issues that have plagued them over the years. Try to get them going on the right course and the right path, having standard operating procedures, learning how to get along, teamwork kind of a thing, and camaraderie needs to take place down there.
But that's killing the utilities director we had previously.
The municipal services, yes. I think that's the intention, but that's what we need to really talk about with the utility commission. But obviously this would, if they don't want to do that, this person could slide underneath there and be kind of like the Katie of wastewater or the Michelle of, you know what I mean?
Right.
It would still have that hierarchy, but I just feel a little bit in looking at that job description, my own opinion, it was kind of set up to fail because it's too much. And I don't know what the rationale was for going that direction or not going that direction, but it's just a really big job, it sounds like, once you get Public Works, who's so varied. They're not really a utility. I mean, they do stormwater, but they have recreation and leaves and trees and streets and plowing. I mean, it's a lot to kind of take on.
Alder Modoff, yeah.
So I spoke with Nick before he left as well, and we had originally approved the municipal services director to be combined with the DPW. And he just said he was all consumed with DPW's needs and was not able to focus on the utility at all. And it was his recommendation when he left that it gets separated because both of the jobs are so large.
Any other questions? All right, then we can move this forward. Also,
Is this ready to move forward, or we need to have?
well, right, but the public work part can get moved forward.
Yep.
So, okay, where are we now? Discuss the request for a council member reimbursement per Wisconsin statute 1956. You had copies of this for everybody, or not? If you don't, I mean, I can just show them where the statute is that says that, so. Sure.
give you a chance to peruse that quick, so.
Is there a part where it talks about like legal fees or that I can find faster in here? 'Cause I'm not seeing it. Like,
C.
does anyone see?
See, it's just expense reimbursement in general.
I'm still, I don't know, someone else should look at it. Like, so C states, a state public official may receive and retain from the state or on behalf of the state transportation, lodging, meals, food, or beverage, or reimbursement therefore, or payment or reimbursement of actual and reasonable costs that the official can show by clear and convincing evidence were incurred or received on behalf of the state of Wisconsin, and primarily for the benefit of the state, and not primarily the benefit of a private, for the private benefit of the official. I don't see how that covers. Attorney Johnson, what is your opinion?
I don't think that this statute 1956 applies to this particular section. And I was trying to look up state public official, but of course, that's going to take me too long. The bigger issue, I think, is that you have an ordinance that state public office has the meaning given in 1942. Okay. So that's going to take me a minute. I think the bigger issue is that you have an ordinance that discusses the ethics committee, how these hearings are held, so on and so forth, and there's nothing in there that prohibits or allows the recovery of attorney fees. So it's more a question of what do you guys want to do with this? I don't think there's any guidance one way or the other in the local ordinance or in the state statute that governs this. Normally, everybody's state public office, okay, I finally found it. No, you don't. You need to give me just a second.
It's just that, I didn't see anything in there that would cover it.
Yeah, and state public office does go down to municipal court judges, but it does not go down to alders or local government officials, at least by what I am reading right now. So I think going back to where I was originally going is that you have the ability to do this if you want to, but it is not something that is specifically allowed under statute or your ordinance, and it's also not prohibited because both cases are silent as far as I can tell. Under normal litigation, each party is responsible for their own fees. And I don't think that the ethics committee, if I remember correctly, I don't think there was a finding that this complaint was brought in bad faith or was done for any illegitimate purpose. It turned out to be a unwarranted complaint that was denied by the committee, but that, I mean, the citizen had a right to bring it. I guess I'll leave it at that. So that's what I have to offer.
Anybody else have anything they wish to add to this? Any comments?
It should go forward for a vote one way or the other. I mean, the request has been made, so it
Right,
should.
right.
It should go forward after today's meeting to a final vote one way or the other.
I suppose per ordinance it has to. Doesn't matter.
So move this forward at this point. Okay.
I'll give us all time to think about it, because I wasn't prepared during the thought process.
Okay, and then we move on to discuss the Columbus Historic Landmark and Preservation Commission ordinance. So, who would like to clarify? I don't know, I'm looking at who, otherwise.
I suppose the big thing, because not everyone's been here during this whole thing, this has been going on for, I don't know, at least 3 years, probably closer to 4.
Closer to 5.
Closer to 5, okay. Yeah, that makes me feel like I've been here way too long. The only reason it ever comes back to council is that I have personally forced it back onto the agenda. We have kept one of the hardest working and most diligent group of volunteers our community has in limbo for 5 years over this. And it's getting pretty absurd. Like, this is something that should have been taken care of literally 5 years ago and has been put on the back burner over and over and over again. I can see our administrator's point of the zoning commission, but in reality, this ordinance was started by the mayor, the previous, well, 2 mayors ago, and the council. It wasn't started by anyone else. It wasn't presented to us for the zoning commission to give us their opinion. The council was creating this. So it's in the council's hands. It always has been and always should have been. And we are the legislative branch. We are the branch that drafts ordinances and adopts ordinances. There is no other group in the city. There is no other legislative entity in our city except for the people sitting right here, right now. We have kept these people in limbo and not allowed them to fully do their job for 5 years. It's time for that to end.
So, well, I understand that. This is my zoning hat. Unfortunately, this ordinance is an arm of the zoning and the police powers underneath the state statute. That's where the issue is. And right now, it sits inside of the zoning code, of which between statute and our own ordinance says that the planning commission gets the first crack at the public hearing for it. You guys are the ones that then are the approving body. So if you don't agree, you're allowed to amend it at that point. But there is a specific process that kind of needs to be followed if it's in the zoning ordinance, or if it's even tied to the zoning ordinance. I think that's a whole other conversation too, that we keep splitting everything out because we talk about things getting lost or being inconsistent, and I think that's part of the reason why. So we have so many ordinances that somebody has to look at when they come into the city to make sure that they're all connected. So I get what you're saying. It's 5 years well ahead of my time, but I would want to see it move forward correctly, and at the same time to have the communication between the zoning staff and this committee so things then don't get lost. Because even though they're approving a certificate of appropriateness, that zoning administrator still has that whole underlying zoning level that has to be reviewed and approved before a use can move forward, if that makes sense. So I just want to make sure that they're coordinating as well as we move forward. And there's communication between the zoning office and this commission. Like, who's taking the applications when they come in? How does the zoning administrator know that they came in and they're on the agenda? What happens if one is denied? You know, so then it goes to, I mean, I know there's concerns that this is coming to the council in the draft as the approval, but I don't think that was the intent. The intent was for that group to hear it, and if there is an issue, then they come to council as like the Board of Adjustment. Otherwise, they have to go to court. We don't want folks to have to do that. So I don't know if people have comments on the ordinance. I don't know if you want to jump in, Paul, since you have
I'm
history
just
on
waiting
it.
patiently.
But there's technically a process we have to follow when we start amending the zoning ordinance, I guess is my only stick.
Alder Finkler, you had your light on.
So I guess I'm confused what we're deciding in COW, or if we're moving, like, okay, let me step back a minute. I'm part of the ordinance ad hoc committee, and we have met, we have discussed, we have taken Attorney Johnson's feedback, we have met with HLPC, and we came to an agreement. That was all noted, notes taken last one. Then I took those minutes personally, I passed those on, and then this topic has been dead in the water since then until it comes back to council or COW. Now, with all this information, that's a step before we even met last time and came up with agreements. And then there's been no update to the ordinance from those minutes, or I'm not sure. And then the other thing is, like, the ordinance ad hoc committee did not agree to even send anything to council yet. So I guess I'm just confused where this is all at, and I'm on the committee. Like, and I have no idea what's going on.
Can I address that, please?
Welcome to hell.
Well, who had their light on?
Oh,
Serena.
I think so.
Or no, Attorney Johnson, sorry.
Johnson,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, sorry.
My light's been on for a very long time, but I will gladly defer and I will wait till the end.
I
Oh.
was,
Just a minute. I think she had
I
hers
think
on,
so. Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm also on the ordinance committee and was surprised to see it in what looks like a finalized version. I thought we would be forwarding the original ones with the new ones, possibly with new things marked with red, so we can see the changes or things that have been, what has been striked out. So that's what I'll start with, and then I'll come back later.
so, as chair of the ordinance ad hoc committee, I just want to let you guys know what happened. We were going to have another ordinance ad hoc meeting, carry it through as discussion happened, and Alder Gray started behind the scenes pushing that it had to be on the agenda for this COW. And at the same time, we also learned more about the fact that it's a zoning ordinance in effect. And that is something that we talked about at the ordinance ad hoc meeting when we first did it, that this was part of the zoning code. And Lisa Wilson gave me the opinion at that time that we should review the zoning ordinance, and then it was magically on the agenda today. That's really, yeah.
I requested it to be on the agenda because it was decided that it was supposed to come back to the agenda of the COW several months ago, and it never did. It was being put into another committee without the COW ever seeing it again, which was the direction of the council. It was supposed to come back to the council or the COW quite some time ago, and it never did. That's what was supposed to happen. I do also agree that the draft that we were given and that is not the most complete or latest up-to-date draft, and it's not what should have been provided to us, but it is what we have. That is not our fault, and that is unfortunate. It's not the appropriate draft that should be here. But this does belong on the COW. This was, the council made a decision, what was it, 4 or 5 months ago, that this was supposed to come to back to the COW a couple months ago. This should be here. This should have been here a long time ago. This should have been taken care of 5 years ago.
Alder Reed,
Thank
sorry.
you. While I'm very glad to see that we have it on the COW so that we can have a, more open and wider discussion, I guess there's just little things I have questions. Like, what is now missing where our CHLPC will lose their status with the state? What needs to be included? And then under section 117-3 for definitions, letter A, on what an alteration is. We were having discussions on how this affects what the CHOPC can do. This alteration is just talking about requiring a building permit or other license from the city, but there's so much that they cover that it does not need a building permit. Like I know they were asking about keeping in sandblasting and painting because that can, ruin bricks.
Right. Yeah, and so the big thing that would affect the CLG status is in this one, which I know your latest updated version wasn't like this. Your latest updated version would not affect their CLG status. Only the one that's before us would, unfortunately. So that's part of the problem, is this isn't the correct version. And what it is that the council would be making the decision and the HLPC would be making a recommendation for the certificates of appropriateness, and that would make them lose their CLG status. And that's how this is written, but that's not how the latest version should have been. So that's one of the problems of what we have before us, isn't the latest copy or the right copy. But I think, if it has to be approved by the zoning board, if that is a statute that we must follow, then I still think it would behoove us to put together the final ordinance that this council will agree on and then send it to the zoning. Instead of sending this mess to them, let's get the final one that we all agree on, send it to them so they can rubber stamp it and send it back to us for final approval. Like, that's logical sense. We're already, we're in the end zone. Why don't we just take it home?
Alder Motive.
I'd like to make the recommendation that we begin the review of the zoning ordinance. It's a huge ordinance. It's going to take a long time. I fully understand that. But there are several other things we have found that are an issue because of the zoning ordinance, like construction guidelines. So we need to get that moving, I think, as a priority.
Alder Finkler.
I'm going to say I want to hear what Attorney Johnson has to say, because I want to know where we're going with all this, because I just want to see, the ordinance in the state, it should have been updated from our last meeting that we had HLPC at, and then I don't want this to be reviewed by council at all, or planning or zoning or whoever it needs to go to. I want the original ordinance ad hoc committee to get that updated ordinance from our last meeting minutes that were taken, which we should have gotten, and then we review that, and if the ordinance ad hoc committee is good with that and HLPC is good with that, that's what needs to move forward. I did say I wanted to hear from you.
Well, I don't know where to start. So, I'll start with a couple of comments. This is exactly how ordinances are not supposed to be drafted. This started with Mayor Tome and Alder Johnson getting really upset with something that HLPC did that blindsided the entire council back in 2018, I believe. And the actions of what HLPC did at the time, which was actually pursuant to the ordinance and not incorrect, but was also something that hadn't been done in the city of Columbus for probably, ever, as we found out later, has caused all of this to happen. So what ended up happening is Alder Johnson and Mayor Tome started the process of ripping apart the HLPC code, and it went through about 10 versions that they did, and then they gave it to me and said, here, clean this up. And I had no idea what they were doing. Still don't, as a matter of fact. And then for the last 5 years, as Ian has put, it has went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The ad hoc committee would work on a draft. HLPC would comment their comments, and the ad hoc committee have been butting heads for a very long time. Jason Tisch has been involved on a couple of occasions. He is, at least in my opinion, given contradictory information on the times that he's been here, or else my memory is really bad, and it could be both. So this has been a complete shambles. And I am really, when I read Lisa's memo in preparation for tonight's meeting, I was incredibly happy to see that she brought this back into the zoning world, because it's been lost from that for a long time. And part of that was my fault, because I'm the guy who suggested that this should be pulled out of the zoning code because it was causing so much controversy back in the day, and I figured that it would be easier to look at in the future if everybody knew where it was, because right now it's buried in 114 Division 9, about 300 pages into the city code, and nobody knows where it is. So that was my mistake, and I never should have done that. But Lisa is 100% correct that before this gets back to you for approval, it has to go through the Plan Commission, it has to go through a public hearing, and if and when we ever get agreed upon language here, and the decision is to put this back in 114, I'm all good with that. I have no problem with that at all. But I thought it was a good idea to pull it out, because it is something that was controversial at the time, and it still is, and it probably will be in the future when I see what the additional budget money is for. It's going to be fun. So, but anyway, this is a mess. And I don't know how you want to go about bringing this together. My suggestion would be that if the ad hoc committee wants to take the lead here, the ad hoc committee, the HLPC committee, and a representative from the state should all sit down around that table and figure this out so that everybody's happy and it has all the right things. There are a couple things in here that I think are just flat against the statute that I've been arguing about for a long time, and I've given up. So I don't know everything about HLPC statute. If you read the HLP statute, it's about this big. There's about I think there's 2 paragraphs, and that's all that the statute gives for guidance. But obviously, the city code is huge. Very thorough, and actually has a lot of really good stuff in it. But this has turned out to be a political football, like other things that are going on in the city, and it does really need to be cleaned up. I have been here for 13 years now, and I have been complaining about the zoning code for 13 years. Your zoning code is horrible. I also know that it will take a very long time and a lot of money to bring it into the 20th century, and then we'll worry about getting it into the 21st century. Zoning codes are very, very important. They are very, very large if you want them to be. I have a municipality that has a 5-page zoning code. Drives me nuts. But I also have a municipality that has a 290-page zoning code that drives me nuts. So that's a project for another day. If and when you get around to zoning codes, budget for it. Because I don't know, I don't care how you go about doing it, but it's a very expensive proposition, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of input. But anyway, getting back to this, as long as you let me speak, thank you very much. This is not ready for council approval. agree with Ian, this needs to get done soon. I would suggest, however you want to move this forward, it has to get out of committee, it has to get out of committee, it has to get to the planning commission, you have to have your public hearing, you have to get it done, and then let's get it done. Thank you.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. So this wasn't exactly what I was anticipating on seeing when Alder Motive sent it to me and it ended up in the packet. I was anticipating on seeing the one that the HLPC and the ad hoc committee had already agreed to, because that's the one that we're ready to start actually talking about and moving forward.
Yep.
I would like to see that it probably would be best to come to our next cow again so that we can then say, yes, we agree on this, and it can go to the planning and zoning. I do not think we have the time or resources to completely rework our entire zoning ordinance in time for this. We can still pull this and just do this before we do the entire zoning ordinance. But I think it just makes sense, since we've been talking about it for so long, for the council, probably our next cow meeting, have the appropriate one, not this one, so that we can sit here and be like, yes, we all think this is good. Send it to zoning, then it can go through the full process and then finally come back to us for a final approval. That might take a couple months. We don't need to spend the 3 years that it would take to redo the entire zoning. That's absurd. This amazing group of people have been on hiatus for 5 years over this. This is not okay. They do so much good in our community, and you want to just keep putting this on the back burner? That's not acceptable.
Alder Finkler.
No, I'm in agreement with mostly what Ian's saying. I think this needs to go get finalized by ordinance ad hoc committee, because they've been working on it with HLPC. It needs to be not finalized, a final draft, I should say, from those two. We have worked really hard together to do that, and that needs to get done, and I would ask for that to come back to next cow, and I do not want this to be held hostage by the redoing of the zoning ordinances either.
No, the two should be, at this
Yeah.
point, should be completely
Yeah.
separate.
Can I?
Yes, Alder Moore.
I was not at the last ordinance ad hoc meeting. I think you took the notes, Molly. Did you forward them to Attorney Johnson or anybody to update the ordinance?
Yeah, I just sent them to you immediately.
To me?
Yeah, you even called me about them.
Okay. I don't remember.
Yep, you called me on the phone about them. Yeah,
Okay.
I sent very detailed minutes to you about it and exactly what needed to be updated, like very detailed minutes. So, yeah, it should be easy to update. I know you have the current version, and then it should be ready to come to cow.
So Pat, have you gotten those too? So who's doing?
The whole committee got my minutes.
The whole committee got
Yep.
it? Okay. So we can do meeting minutes. Okay.
I did it, yeah, I did, and the whole committee took, yep,
Okay.
yep. No, Joe noted down like the,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
those minutes, but like I took down all the details on the ordinance. And it was very detailed notes, so I'd love to see them implemented in the ordinance and us move forward.
Okay, just checking to see if there's
One
anything else.
one quick question. So who can put this together for the next cow? Because I know like the information exists and the ordinance that the ad hoc committee and the CHLPC mutually agreed to should be able to be created and brought to the cow so that we can be like, yes, this is the ordinance we want planning and zoning to look at, and and then go to public hearings. Like, is someone going to put that together? Like, who can do that for us so that it's ready?
Sarah's been the one that's been making all the updates to the ordinance throughout the whole ordinance ad hoc, which is why I sent the detailed minutes, because I do not have the current versions. I do not have the historical knowledge on how they've been updated throughout the time. And quite frankly, it's still a mess how it is right now.
Molly,
So I
it
think
hasn't been me, it's been Attorney Johnson who's been making the actual changes.
On the Word document?
Well, I'm surprised to hear all that.
Have you?
Yeah.
The last version I touched is, I believe, the one that's in the packet.
September
Yes.
29th.
And that was just your feedback. And that was what we reviewed at the last meeting.
I
Yeah.
Don't even know.
Okay, it's clear the ordinance ad hoc has a little work to do, and somewhere there was a breakdown in communication. We can review it again. I'm happy to go through it. I will go through my email, make sure I got your email. Did you send me a PDF or a Word version? Do you know?
I can send you whatever you need.
I need a Word version if it's going to get updated.
Yes, yes, mine is September 17, and I'm officially done with this, and I really like that to be true. Yes, I will send you what I have, and then you run.
I think this would have been a lot easier and come out correctly had it not been forced to have been on the cow. And the ordinance ad hoc was allowed to have its next meeting.
Not,
I move to adjourn.
well, hold on, before we get to that point. This was, you know, it was brought back
Nice
to
try.
cow, and it's update on what's going on. Whether it wasn't forced, so, it's good to have the update. So appreciate everybody's help on this, and we'll get it worked out. So now, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
A motion from Molly and a second from Alder Gray to adjourn. Any further discussion on anything? Then, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.